Hello everyone, welcome back to another Transformers review, and as you can see this time, this might not be one of the more familiar figures to everyone watching. This is actually from the G2 Machine Wars line, and it's a Decepticon called Obliterator Clench. Now, he was one of the larger of the figures of that sort of period. A little bit along the lines of, say, I suppose, like RID Scourge, saying along those sort of lines with his truck mode, similar to Prime, but completely unique to this actual character and this particular toy. I don't think they've ever done another copy of him. Not sure if they've ever done another toy of him with a different mode, but yeah, he's a pretty good figure. Does suffer a little bit with sticker peel and that, but it's not bad. Quite a nice truck mode. It's from the period of the old gold plastic syndrome, but fortunately that, as far as I can tell, is the only bit of gold on him, and I think that's actually just a paint application, so luckily this guy doesn't suffer quite from what his Autobot counterpart, Pyro, who's also an obliterator class figure. He suffers badly with gold plastic syndrome from what I've heard. Don't have him, but then the figures with gold plastic problems, and it's probably best to stay away from them if you can avoid them, because simply for the fact it just literally falls to bits in your fingers. Anyway, getting back to Clench, not a figure that I think has ever really come into any of the comics or magazines that I'm aware of. I might be wrong, obviously I haven't read everything, so could well be something out there. Not sure if they've ever done a like a remold or like a newer toy of this figure either. I don't recall ever seeing another one of Clench, but again, I could be wrong. One thing to note, quite an unusual sort of like plastic they've done it with. It's almost got like a speckled finish, which is a little bit sort of jazzy, and obviously because being G2 it had some quite jazzy colour schemes on the stickers and paint apps and that. But quite a nice little tidy vehicle mode, modelled on something like, I don't know if it's supposed to be a dump truck or a tow truck or something like that. But anyway, the actual figure itself is in two components, and I'll pull it apart so you can see that, and it's just held together with these two connectors into those slots there. Now, that in itself dictates the fact that one part is the figure, which is the cab, and one part is like a battle base weapon type arrangement. All quite nicely detailed. I'll start, I think, with his weapon and get to the figure last. Again, I'll bring it in. You can see it's quite nice detailing on the wheels. They're plastic wheels, not rubber by this point, but the speckle finish and that is picking out quite nicely in the light. A little bit weird, but it kind of works. Now, to transform this to its sort of weapon mode, first of all you hinge up the top section like so, pull out this arm and extend the sort of claw bit at the end round, and it is a like independently hinging claw, so you could use that as a kind of weapon in his vehicle mode as well. But you pull that up and extend it slightly, and then you've got to turn it on its end like so, and then these side parts with the wheels just hinge down and out, and then you'll notice inside there's a pink part with two hand sort of grips. I'll bring that in so you can see that a bit clearer. That you just need to swing out one of them out of the way a little bit first, and then that hinges up, and then you can have the two handholds, and obviously that's for the figure to hold the weapons. And then last but not least on this part is that you've got a sight at the top with a hinged part there which sort of comes back, and that's his sort of like aiming piece, and if I bring that in you can see what I mean. It's got like crosshairs so you can be aiming the guns. Now I unfortunately don't have the missiles for this, and I do wish I did. To put them in you actually hinge open the tops like so, and you just drop them in, and to fire them you just pull back on this black piece, and as you can hear there's like a sprung loaded mechanism which would fire them out, and they come out through these holes here. Like I say, wish I had some missiles for it, but unfortunately I don't have them anymore. But anyway, again, quite a nice little weapons sort of platform, quite basic, but it kind of works with the figure. And again, you know, it's the sort of thing you could add on to other bases and that, and have other figures could be firing it. Doesn't necessarily have to be Clench. But anyway, that is the weapon side done. Now for the actual robot, well, you've just got this cab section, and it does have a little tab what you can fold out so that it's not sitting on its bum. It doesn't necessarily always stay spot on, but it does at least keep the cab section up off the floor. Again, I'll give you a little bit of closer detail. He's got some nice little, again with light piping came in more with the G2 sort of line, so you get a little bit of that sort of coloured clear plastic on these figures. And he does have light piping. It's quite nice as well. They put a bit of chrome on his smokestacks, and you get a little bit of wear with that, but it's actually not too bad. Anyway, to his main robot transformation, you need to flip up this top section first, and if I just move that out of the way, you then have to hinge these side sections with the pipes out, and then you leave those there for the second. You then move the figure sort of this way round, and as you can see, that's his chest section and abdomen here. Now what you have to do to get his arms out is split the front section of the truck like so, and these sections just pull out, as you can see, and it sort of pulls out to the side. Now it is incredibly stiff, and it just sort of clicks out. One side's worse than the other, and that reveals his arms, which again, G2 colour scheme, really bright, fluorescent pink and fluorescent green. A little bit weird, but okay, we go with that. Now this frees up enough space on the sides where the fists were to allow the legs to turn. So you've got to do that part first, and then you can bring the legs down. Now at this point, on a lot of other figures, you just spin that round because the back side is solid and the front is hollow. But on this figure, it does have the neat little gimmick that you can fold that section in, and that becomes the front of the legs and sort of some stubby sort of toes. So again, quite an ingenious little thing, and something that's probably followed on to the say movie line figures and that, try and incorporate the bodywork into the actual limbs. Now all what's really left to do is, if you notice, you've got two little pegs there. You bring the windscreen to the back of the figure, flip this whole section up, and then the middle section with the arrows comes down with his head, and that just clips in position on top like so. I'll give you a little bit closer look at his face, which is quite a weird one, but again very G2. And as you can see, actually even in this light, the light piping is pretty good on this figure. Really does show up, but weirdly they almost shine sort of like a yellow colour, but it is actually the same sort of clear greeny plastic, but with the light going through it, is really sort of vivid, almost yellow on the eyes, which is a little bit spooky, but quite a nice head sculpt. A little bit odd, but then that is G2 all over. It is that sort of odd kind of like difference between G1 and G2 in the fact that they went quite overboard on colour schemes and styles at this point. Actually, if I fail to mention it, this is from 1993, so this Machine Wars line. A little bit of a shame that these parts end up sticking up in the air. There's nothing else you can do about that, because it's not independently hinged from the head enough that it turns back, which is a little bit of a shame. Just by doing that, it would have made the figure a lot neater, but I can sort of live with it. Compared to some G1s and that, it's not too bad in kibble. Obviously his shoulders are obviously a bit kibbly with the front end of the truck, but again, can't really help that. Articulation wise, not too bad. He's got limited shoulder movement, but it's not too bad again for the age figure. He does have elbow articulation, which obviously also, if I bring those up, would aid the fact that when he's holding the weapons. And he does have knee and hip articulation, not out to the sides, but in a limited way, so you could put him in a kind of a running pose, something like that, though he wouldn't necessarily stand. You'd have to fiddle around with that to get that into position. But anyway, as of course he's got his arms in the right place, you can of course fit these posts into the underside, if you can line them up properly, of his fists, so he could effectively be manning his own weapons and even looking through the sight. So it's quite well designed in that way, and quite an unusual little toy. Now, like I say, there was an Autobot counterpart to this sort of figure called Pyro. Now he was like a fire engine and worked in similar ways and had a sort of missile pod, not unlike the Dreadwind character from the G2 line. But yeah, unfortunately he does suffer with gold plastic syndrome, so it's one to, you know, if you was lucky and you found a good one, you know, you could go for it, but it's one figure a little bit wary about picking up, because his arms and his feet are gold plastic. But for this figure, he's in sort of like pretty good condition, because simply for the fact he's quite well built. It's a pretty sturdy figure, not a lot really to break. The only unfortunate thing, as I've already said, is of course the missiles are missing. But I hope one day I might be able to pick them up. They're only pretty much a straightforward, straight green plastic missile, I believe. But anyway, I thought I'd show you this figure. It's a little bit more of an unusual one, and not one you necessarily come across that often. So, hope you've enjoyed that review. I shall see you again for another Transformers review. Please feel free to comment and sub. Feel free as well to look back on any of the other videos I've done. You might well find that there might be something you'd be interested in seeing back in one of the older ones, if you're one of the newer subscribers. And again, I should say, I've had a couple more new subscribers. I haven't really had the thought again to really get anybody's name up before I've done this review, but to everybody who's subbed recently, or even to the people that I've subbed recently, it's really great meeting other Transformers fans, and hope one day we might get to meet up. I'm not going to AA this year as far as I know, but you never know in future years. It'd be really great to meet up and have a drink and that. But anyway, to everyone out there who's watching, thanks very much, and I shall see you again for another review. Thanks for watching.